Hi, good morning. This is a log entry 166 at about 9:30 a.m. CST. I've been spending a lot of time contemplating yesterday and today because I had a lot of personal things that I was going through, mainly pertaining to a relationship I used to have with an ex of mine, and they called me last night, and I didn't answer the phone because they were acting. I don't know. I didn't have really a good reason to answer the phone because maybe it's considered to be dickish of me, but I kind of moved on from the situation, and us really talking about what we used to have wouldn't really solve any issues, and I don't know. I think it would just end up being an argument anyways. And if they keep calling me, because they called me multiple times yesterday out of concern for whatever reason. I don't think it was concern for me. It was more, how would I say this? I don't know. Honestly, I can't really explain why they would call me, because I thought they would have gotten over this situation by now. It's been like 3 years and whatnot, and yeah, I don't know. It just made me start thinking about relationships again because I'm not traditionally well practiced in having relationships because I never had the opportunity to do so aside from a couple of times, and most of the time it ended out not being that great, but also that was because I had to go through a lot of lessons. I mean, those had to happen for me to learn a couple of things, because I believe that the best way to learn things is through experience, and books are great and all, but they don't fill in the whole picture, right? Conceptually, you can understand it and whatnot, but I think by going through experience, you can actually learn. You can learn to implement them, I guess. Of course. So I don't know. It's just like I think about relationships and what love means to me and all that, because I think love is considered to be a very complicated topic. But for me, I think love is also subjective, right? Everybody has their own love language, and they tend to send and receive love in different ways. And the way I send and receive love is basically by respecting somebody. And that's just how I've always showed love for somebody, and the ways that I, show respect. It's more of a choice, right? The reason why I may love somebody is a little bit different, and I think it's complicated, right? Love tends to be a feeling, but it can also be a logical. It could be cognitive as well. I'm not really on the feely side, more on the cognitive side of love. And what I mean by that is that, when you love somebody, you want them to be in your life more. And the way you keep them in your life is by respecting them and showing them that you care and that you want them to be in your life more often. And this can, that love is, it can be objectified. Yes, I know there's a more feely kind of love, but for me, I perceive love to be that. And if I love something, it's like, I don't know. Again, like I don't. you can translate it to inanimate objects and whatnot, but then it kind of ruins that the love that in which most people perceive. Right? It's inherently a desire to have something in your life and keep it there. Right? It's like having a table, and you want to make sure it's treated correctly and cared for. It sounds cold, and it's just how I perceive love, and I think I've always perceived love in that manner. I've never been the kind of person to have butterflies in my stomach. I actually, I see when I see people that are physically attractive, and I think there have been instances in which it wasn't just physical attraction. It felt like something else, but honestly, I am still in that phase of defining love to be more cold, because I've never really had much time to really experience the feeling kind of love, because I never had an instance in which I felt that, obviously, so I can't really explain it well like other people. And again, it's more of a feeling. You can't really explain what it is. You can give analogies and You can say that this feels like this and whatever, but you can't really put your finger on it, right? That's why people always talk about love in more um, through analogies, basically, right? You know, like butterflies and whatnot, or what would you call them? Idioms. Figurative language can only explain what the feeling kind of love is, because it can't be logically mapped to a structure. So, yeah. So that's my current definition of love, and I believe it will change in the next few years. Once I actually put myself out there again. And, you know, I would say that I'm ready to experience other kind of love. I just haven't found the right person. I've ran into a couple of instances in which I don't know what to say. Again, it's more of like a feeling that you're attracted to somebody that can't be logically explained a couple of times. It just never, I would say right person, wrong time. It could have been the wrong person, but it seemed like they were the right person, but it just didn't end up working, and that's fine. You know, I've learned a lot from it. I'm not really a hopeless romantic anymore. Was I ever really a hopeless romantic? I guess I have. I don't know. I've vicariously tried putting myself in other people's situations through music and movies and whatnot, but I still can't feel that feeling that other people feel. So I look at it from a third person perspective and wonder what it's like. So I've lived through it vicariously, basically, by looking at movies and looking at other people experience love and saying, oh, that is possible. You know what I mean? So I'm not necessarily too pessimistic about it, because it is a possibility, because I've seen it before, right? Yeah, so I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I think I've actually reached a healthy state in which I am able to feel that feeling. It's just I haven't found the right person. And the times in which I have felt that feeling, it didn't really end up panning out the way I thought it would, so I didn't really get to explore that feeling as much as I'd like to. Because it's not just a feeling, it's being able to express it in different manners and be able to explore those different expressions and whatnot, right? Through intimacy and being vulnerable with somebody and trying to use words to explain those feelings and that you see in poetry and all that, right? Yeah. So, I don't know, maybe it's like, again, like I'm open to the idea of it, but it's also something that I'm willing to put on the back burner, because I wouldn't want something like that to consume my life, because I have other things that I'm more concerned about that are more immediate, you know, like having a career and developing myself in multiple areas, mainly pertaining to my skill set and shaping my character and just being a generally better human being. And eventually, I think I want to experience that. And that feeling is there. Well, I don't even know if that feeling is what I don't really feel the desire to go through that experience right now. So I guess I'm not really ready for it. But I think that's only because I'm in another state in which I'm not feeling that feeling. But once it actually occurs again, where I run to somebody that I have that magnetic attraction to, that feeling will change again to, yeah, I'm willing to try this out if you are, I guess. If you want to experience those human things. That sounds so robotic, but yeah, that's basically how I think of it. This is me being vulnerable, because this is the closest I can be to being vulnerable, because feelings are hard for me. Yeah. Yeah. Aside from that, I've just been thinking about, I did my collision management, because I was supposed to do that yesterday, which I did. I did it at the end of the day, and I was kind of like thinking about different things, and I had a few errors here and there pertaining to the render, because it was just like simple mistakes here and there. And now I'm thinking about, you know, just doing like a menu overlay and just kind of like iterating different functionalities onto my game. It's not really a game, but it's getting somewhere. It's just practice, and I'm kind of iterating and adding small functionalities to it here and there, and going one step at a time, and not going too fast, because I think I want to integrate it deeply, as opposed to copy and pasting code from the internet to get a product out, I guess. So yeah, I'm taking my time doing that, and I think the next thing I want to do is to implement a menu functionality. Since I'm familiar with the render, I think what would be a good way to do that? Well, of course, you'd have multiple sprites or objects or whatever, and they'd be textures. And the one thing I'm thinking about is like a loop. It could be like an array of zeros and ones depending on how many objects I want. You know, you could have like the start or like load, and then the option settings, and you have all these buttons that go to different states to then go to that screen as opposed to the other. And there would be an event checker, of course, and then there would be that would be checking a button press, which would be enter. The arrow would change the state of the menu, which would be an array that loops back. So basically, it would be checking at the end if like a simple logic would be like if the size of the array is equal to the size of the array minus 1, sorry, because it starts at 0, the index is at 0, minus 1 is equal to the, how would you do that? I mean, I think it would be an array of zeros and ones, and each time you press a button, you would change that array to that one going down. I'm thinking that's the best way to do it. It's like a bool. It's a bool array, right? And this bool array goes down each time you hit the up or down and whatnot. And when it loops back, it's like if bool, I guess it would have to be like a search, because you would have to see which index that is. So you'd have to go through that loop, unless if there's an easier. I guess you could also give it another state where you iterate through the array, and then you can say if hover and then you can keep track of the hover, which is an index like 0 to whatever the size of the array is, like 3 or something. So I guess you could do it that way, meaning you could just use if the size of the array is equal to hover plus 1, because that's just how it shifts, because it starts at 0. And a lot of people, yeah, anyways, yeah, so if it's equal to 1, then it would loop back, so then you would set the index to that, to 0 again. Yeah, so then hover would be equal to 0. It would just reset to 0, and that's how it would loop around. Because that's a variable, obviously, you would want to know that. So maybe you wouldn't need a bool array for that. You just have an array of objects pertaining to that, and then if, yeah. And then hover would be the index that it's on. I call it hover. I mean, that's a good way to say it, right? Because you have like a, I don't know, when you're flipping through menu items, you have like some form of like texture modification that makes it look darker gray or whatever. And so I'll play around with textures and whatnot, and I'll see what I can do with hover and that particular kind of logic, and it seems pretty okay in that. I'd have to think about like how I'd want to do this, because I don't know how I'd want to implement the different kinds of screens and whatnot, or the states, because you'd have like state in game and then state menu, and then like the different states within menu state, like settings and whatnot. And there would have to be an event handler, I guess, some kind of handler that deals with all those states, and then it'll flicker through those somehow. So I think I'll probably implement that into one whole function. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not, but we'll see. I'm probably going to think about it some more. I haven't really written any notes on it, but that sounds like a decent idea. Yeah. Seems interesting. Yeah, so I'm going to do that today and experiment and play around with the like a menu functionality. And then after I'm done messing with menu functionality, I'll probably look at sprites and other objects in the actual game, like messing around with projectile objects, and then not just projectile objects, but terrain objects. And you'd obviously have to put those into a separate list because you don't want the search to be that long, right, for collisions. So you'd be, yeah. So of course, if you have an enemy or a player character, you would want collision with enemies and objects. So you'd have a list for each of those, and you'd be parsing through both those lists to see if there's any collisions. As for allies, you could probably just walk through them, or you could just do the same thing without. Yeah. So I'm going to think about how to do that, how I'd like to actually present that in my code and whatnot, because I'm trying to be more mindful about the way I present my code, because I think that's the smart thing to do, of course, especially in more complicated systems. So yeah, so I'm going to look at that, and aside from that, I'm going to keep, I don't know, I haven't been practicing coding as much as I'd like to. I've been kind of ruminating and thinking about my past a lot, because sometimes that happens, I guess. And yeah. Anyways, I think that's it for now. I'm giving updates on what I've been doing, so bye.